You are listening to the 5 a.m. podcast, and today is your day. Welcome to the 5 a.m. podcast, where we bring you insightful conversations with thought leaders and influencers who are making headway and some waves in their callings and industries. Today, I am pleased to welcome Brett Gallant to the 5 a.m. podcast. Brett is the founder of Adaptive Office Solutions and a cybersecurity expert with over 25 years in the IT industry. Now, what makes Brett's story particularly compelling is how he mastered both the technical and human elements of business success. After years of hands-on work building his company, Brett underwent a remarkable personal transformation, losing 100 pounds while simultaneously shifting his approach to leadership and scaling his business. He moved from being the person who solved every problem to the visionary who empowers his team through effective delegation and strategic thinking. Specializes in helping businesses of all sizes implement practical cybersecurity measures and build scalable systems that support growth without compromise. Whether you're concerned about digital threats, struggling with that transition from operator to leader, or seeking to balance business demands with personal well-being, Brett's insights offer a blueprint for sustainable success. Before we roll that intro, we have a warm welcome to you as you listen and watch. Please consider sharing this today with 3 of your friends. I know many are going to enjoy this conversation. And of course, a big thank you to those who have given a 5-star review on your favorite podcast player. We do appreciate that. And we need to thank those kind souls that have ventured over to buymeacoffee.com/5am podcast and bought us a few of those virtual cups of coffee this week and last. We do appreciate all levels of support. Now, let's roll that intro. Brett, welcome to the show.
Hey, thank you, Michael. It's such a pleasure to be here. I'm happy to have an opportunity to share my story and just give back to the world.
Yes. Well, we're happy to have you here, and it's always interesting. And of course, you and I are both on Podmatch, which is a great site. It's always interesting when we get matched up with different people. You never know who's gonna come up in the matchbox,
Yeah,
and so it facilitated great conversation. So hats off to Podmatch and Alex and company over there. I
wonderful guy.
did want to get started by asking you, thinking back all those years, how did you get started in the IT industry, and what led you to build Adaptive Office Solutions?
Thank you for the question. That's a great one. And we have to go back really a long time ago, back in after I finished community college. I didn't find a job in my field. I took international software marketing and publishing, but I always had a flair and a passion for IT.
Okay.
And I live in Eastern Canada, and the economy is not the greatest. At that time, it wasn't the greatest. And I made the decision to go to Western Canada, where oil was great and there was jobs aplenty. And I found out there was an IT position available for a construction fabrication company. I told them, I said, hey, I need to know if you're hiring me by Sunday. Otherwise, I'm driving to Western Canada. And they called me Sunday evening. Brett, you have the job. And I like to say that was a moment where I really connect with this saying that Wayne Gretzky says, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. So
Yes.
I spoke my truth and I landed and worked with that wonderful company for over 14 years. And I always had this passion of being an entrepreneur. And I made the decision in April 1st of 2010 to launch Adaptive Office. But what's interesting, I'm a person that's really driven by goals. And I had the great pleasure of helping one of my clients in 2007 set up for a webinar with Brian Tracy. And Brian Tracy shared, write down 10 of your goals, take 3 minutes and write down 10 of your goals. And I found that list of goals last year before I made a presentation in Phoenix on mindset. And goal number 4 was by April 1st, 2010, I will own my own successful IT company. That's the power of goals.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you're talking about goals. It's got to be some divine intervention. So I've got this little piece of paper right here. We started 5 a.m. podcast back in the beginning of 2019. And one of our first articles that we wrote for that website, it's still up there. People can still go there at 5ampodcast.com. And it's our SMART goal worksheet. And it wasn't something that we wanted to monetize. We wanted to bless the people that were coming to our website with this free SMART goal worksheet. And growing up, you hear about making lists and making goals. And there's even a Bible verse talks about writing your vision down plain so that you can run with it, so that there's no impediment to your forward momentum of crafting your vision and accomplishing your goals. So the reason that I'm showing you this sheet is our number one download still to this day, 6 years later, is that SMART goal worksheet. And
Incredible.
so what we're working on now is actually an enhanced comprehensive guide that goes with the worksheet. But can the reason I bring that up is it's one thing to see the sheet and to make your goals and to write them and think that they're plain, but that's like the tip of the iceberg. Can you talk a little bit about putting that action to the goal sheet that you had?
Yeah. Well, I would say that was me and my baby steps. I've been on this lifelong journey of personal and professional
Right.
development. And what I do now is I write my goals, the SMART goals, but I write them in the present tense. I weigh 200 pounds by June 26, 2025. But what I learned in the past year, especially actually the last 16 months, I keep my goals close and I check my goals. I have them listed on my phone in a little app, and I look at them 3 times a day. And on top of that, I have a vision board as a background on my laptop. A vision board. I'm looking at it right now as we
Okay.
speak, and I see it there. And it's incredible what has actually happened since I wrote that vision board.
Wow. That's great. I love the idea of the vision board and have a vision board. And just I don't know, maybe a month or two ago, we were talking about how there's things on there that have been accomplished, and it's time to reevaluate and maybe update the vision board to add some more things. One of the lies of our society is you're working and you're in industry of some kind or the corporate world, and eventually you're going to retire, and then you're going to sit at home, maybe get some volunteer opportunities or something like that. I often think of it's not retiring, it's refiring.
Right. I think the real secret in life is to find what you're passionate about and do that from the very beginning. And oftentimes I see a lot of people that retire and end up pivoting to doing something they're passionate about. But hey, why not do it now? And if you can't do it, start working towards doing even 10% of your day. Start living your passion today.
Yeah. Yes. These are words to live by. Honestly, Brett, it's already a great conversation. We're only a few minutes in, but I want to ask our listeners to drop something in the comments. Maybe yes or no, do you have a vision board, or yes or no, you need help with some goals? And I know both Brent and I here at 5 a.m. podcast can help you with that, because can you talk about then what your life might look like now if you hadn't set out on having goals and a vision board?
Well, number one, I dare say I would not have accomplished the success I've had with my own organization, or perhaps I may not have even started, gave birth to this beautiful company. And my vision board means so much more than personal, professional goals. On my vision board, life is challenging and we're given puzzles. I call problems puzzles. And we're given challenges. And I'm a father of five beautiful children. And there was a period in time in my life that my oldest daughter, was not in my life for 2 or 3 years. And that was hard. And when you're dealing with a teenager, life is hard. And but I put on my vision board my daughter with my other four children. And I have a relationship that's thriving right now with my daughter. And I believe part of that reason is the person who I am today is who I needed to be most back then. and the vision board, that I set that vision, that I had the faith and the trust that she would come back.
Yeah, and there is something about the eye gate and the ear gate, our mouth gate. All these things can come in and out of who we are. I know it's been said. I can't think of the comic's name, but he talked about being an angel in an earth suit. So we have this temple that we reside in, and it is fascinates me how powerful affirmations and goals and visions can be in our lives. Can you talk about your experience in that maybe a little bit more?
Yes. For example, just my own transformation. Uh, I've been on this lifelong journey of yo-yoing for the last 17 years with my weight.
Okay.
At my highest, I was 349 pounds. Today, I weigh 223. And I put on my goal, and when I got really serious, my goal was to weigh 200. Did I yo-yo a few times? Yes, but when I got serious and I really lived my vision and honored that, I made that commitment to myself and kept looking at my goal, along with many other things. There's other backstories to that, but I'm sticking to
Yeah.
what you were asking.
Yeah.
I consistently look at that goal every day, and I put into on the back side of that, I put in the action that's necessary to
Yeah.
achieve that.
Right. That's very smart. Very smart. Man, there's so many directions that we could go in it. And I want to ask you a little bit about business leadership because this is all related. And you have described transitioning from being that business operator to the business visionary. And what was the biggest mental hurdles or roadblocks that you faced making that shift from chief cook and bottle washer to visionary and strategic leader?
So there's so many ways I can answer this
Yes.
question. I The best way of how I transitioned from to being the visionary leader was realizing that I needed to have get support. I've invested I invest in myself through books, listening to thought leaders that have come before us and that are out there now. But most importantly, I've learned that the biggest yes you can say is what you say no to. And I pivot a lot to now that I recognize it to where I am today, and I'm still growing and I'm still learning how to become an even more effective visionary leader. In scouting, we say train them, trust them, let them lead. One of my
Yes.
good friends that leads a troop in Eastern Canada has that on their vehicle. And I think of that as a perfect metaphor for business. You have to train your team, you have to trust them and let them lead. And what I recognize now is that I used to think that I was responsible. Everything rested on me, and the whole IT for this community was dependent on me. But the reality is, I've learned that it can't all be me because I am the bottleneck. So I've heard it said so well by Dan Martell, 80% done by someone else is 100% freaking awesome.
Yeah.
The more I allow my team to train them, trust them, lead, and give them a clear definition of done, it allows me to have this more effective time for me to have that thinking time. For example, today I was out for an hour and a half for a hike while my team was having the regular morning meeting. The old version of me would
Yeah.
say, "Oh my goodness, are you kidding? You can't leave for an hour and a half."
Yeah. What's going to happen, Brett?
Yeah,
The
yeah.
place
What
is
will
going to
happen?
burn down.
Bingo. And I just love sharing this story because I'm the biggest person who has learned from this. I do share some of these drops and learning lessons every week on a newsletter I've launched. It's called the Weekly Reset. If
Okay.
any of your listeners comment reset or connect with me, I'll make sure they get subscribed to it. So I share part of my journey.
Awesome. And so, how can they, if they don't enter reset in the comments, how can they get in touch with you?
Find me on Instagram and LinkedIn and just DM me reset. And
Awesome. Well, that's good. And we'll make sure to put that out there as well on to drive some traffic over to you. This is a really critical conversation because a lot of people want to grow. They want to get out of, maybe they feel like they're in a rut or they're in a
Oh,
box and they need to get out of that. And a lot of times we actually don't know what we don't know. And
yeah. We have to
so
put the oxygen mask
yeah,
on ourselves.
that's right. Yeah. Yeah. Actually, that's a very good illustration because probably everyone's been on a plane and had that safety announcement. And I wanted to ask if you've read the book E Myth Revisited.
It's been some time. I need to re-engage in that book. When I first read it, it was a number of years ago, not where I am today.
Yeah. Yeah. The reason I was asking about that book is last year, while I was still a senior broadcast producer, I was getting books for my team. And one of the books that was recommended to me by a close friend and business leader was E Myth. And, my staff was kind of like, well, what are we reading this book for? And I said, no, no, listen, this book is critical because we're all part of a team, and the better that we can be a team member and facilitate, just like you described. Could you say that line from scouting one more time, because that was a really good one?
Oh, train them, trust them, let them lead.
Yes. And that was the over my career being in broadcast and even project management, some other things that I've done, is realizing that I needed to trust the people who were on my team. Can you maybe talk about some experiences or some examples of how we can learn to trust and let go to let other people lead in their kind of stream?
What I would say to that, and it's a muscle continuously learning to flex.
Yeah.
And I believe mindset is a muscle, by the way. So you got to flex it just like you go
Yes.
to the gym.
Yeah.
What you have to recognize is where you are today, you got there because you had the opportunity to fail and learn from those learning experiences. And you had people that mentored you. When you are owning the problem and being the bottleneck and having decision fatigue, like I was having, you are not only doing a disservice to you, but you're doing a disservice to the people on your team. So when you give your team members the opportunity to grow, you coach them, you give them a clear definition of done. And for example, if they come to you with an issue and that they can't solve and they're coming for your feedback, which I used to have this happen a lot, before they come, say, hey, before you come to me with a problem or a puzzle you need to solve, come with three possible ideas that you have that you think could be the solution. And then work with them and let them think. And it's
Yes.
so powerful.
Yeah. That's very empowering to be able to say to your team that invitation to actually problem solve along with me of what do you think is actually going to work, and
Yeah.
that really empowers the people around us. Can you
Use the
maybe
tools. Yeah.
Yeah. Can I was thinking of when you one of the things that we have to structure around our business is time.
Mm.
And that kind of fits in with this, but also too thinking back to your health, that priority that is, and your weight loss journey, how did managing time factor into your success?
I think the most important pivotal moment is this quick story to share, and then I'll tell you.
Sure. Yeah.
When I really got serious about my transformation, it happened in October 2023. I was having a coaching call with my coach, Dave. And I said, Dave, I don't have time to go to the gym. Dave, it was a question. And it's a lot of times this question we have to ask ourselves or somebody has to ask us. And he said, you mean to tell me you own your own company and you don't have time to go to the gym? Now, I said something pretty colorful that I'm not going to repeat. My mother would scold me, and he laughed, and I started building rapid accountability around me in all sorts of ways. But what I learned was plan your week. So work that plan and do things that give you energy. So I make sure that I treat myself. And this is the biggest thing about entrepreneurs. We are so selfless that we want to help everybody else first. And we forget that ourselves, we should be treated just like our most important client. And that way you have more energy to serve. So I plan my week now with rest and relaxation built in. And I plan it when I go for these walks. It's actually been so empowering for me because I also get the time to think. And that has given me so much mental clarity on areas I can improve on my business. So making like make the biggest thing your audience should do if they're not doing it is make a decision today and keep it simple because simplicity is the mother one of the biggest skills of
That's right.
master. Write down what you're doing for the whole day in every 15-minute increments. You don't have to do it as you do it. You can just remember and just right beside it. Did that give me energy? If it didn't, then just write an X or something, however you want to track it, and then make a decision to say, is that something I should be doing? Because you were referencing a great book, The E Myth. But
Yes.
another book that I think that's really helped me a lot is Who Not How. So the question I used to default on, how am I going to get this done? Now I default is, who is going to do this on behalf of the
Yeah.
team?
Right. Well, that's really good. I've noticed in my own life too, of when I want to have success, but I have this tendency to just work and work and work. And even though we talk about morning routines here on the 5 a.m. podcast, I
Love
mean,
5 a.m.
they can say it has been said for every mile of road, there's 2 miles of ditch. And I don't always like that, but I realized that I was off in the ditch because I was so consumed about all the stuff and the projects that I was working on and some out of the house projects that I was working on. And then I realized, whoa, hold on, Michael, your morning routine has suffered because you stopped doing what gave you joy and gave you success and motivated you. And so it's those things of when we have it written down and we can look at it and we can say, sorry, this time is scheduled for something else. I can't be working on my script right now, or I can't be working on this. I'm supposed to do that over here.
Right, and batch those times of script writing. For example, when you
Yeah.
do, there's certain things we have to remember. I'm better qualified to handle certain aspects of my work at certain times of the day.
Yes.
So if I'm doing something creative, I cannot do it after 3 p.m. My brain is just not. So you have to do that and audit that time and energy audit of yourself to recognize that and start stacking your tasks and where you're doing
Right.
them to get to be most effective.
Yeah, that's a very smart point. I'm really glad that you brought that up of just that we can audit ourselves and say, when do I have energy or peace for this task? And when do I not? Yeah, that's excellent, and that's a great takeaway for today's show. That's for sure. But I wanted to ask you too about so business owners, entrepreneurs who maybe they're struggling with burnout, because that's kind of how I felt the other day when I was spending my time in the ditch instead of on the road. I was realizing I was burning myself out because I was breaking my rules. So, for those entrepreneurs and business owners who are struggling with that burnout or maybe some health challenges, what's that first step of the turnaround that you could recommend to them based on your experience?
Two words: take action and build accountability. Now, don't be so hard on yourself and set like I've heard this said before by Jeff Woods when he was leading the one thing, the lead domino. Sometimes we really say, okay, I'm going to go all in and do 2 hours of hiking. But there's a lot of power in saying, today, I'm going to take 3 10-minute walks and just that reset time for you to have that break. I know there's so many of your listeners, there's some that are parents, some that have busy, stressful jobs. Give yourself permission this week to take action and even go for a 20-minute walk or whatever it is that gives you energy. 10 minutes, we all have 10 minutes. Some people say we don't have time, but I am not convinced in this life that
Yeah.
there's nobody in your podcast that does not
Yes.
have 3 10 minutes, and you can start there and then start finding those other ways to do it. And that's the biggest lesson I've learned, and I know I've inspired people to do that because my own coach said I started walking for 20 minutes just because of what you said to me.
That's great. And really being able to take that time.
Yeah.
That way back in the day I remember the power naps. And it's that same kind of thing, but a different modality maybe of being very intentional to give the body and mind time to connect or disconnect, I guess we should say. If someone takes just one action, so they've heard what you said about basically move your feet, take some action. What would you hope? Would it be those 10-minute break rest idea, or is there that next step after they've decided they've got to take action?
Next step, well, if they start there and they realize they want to go further, invest in somebody to help you along in the journey. Invest in yourself. We have no problem in investing in other things like toys,
Yeah.
but if you invest in yourself and find somebody that can motivate you, that can push you, cheer you on, do that. And if you can't do that, keep listening to podcasts like the 5 a.m. podcast to keep inspiring you while you walk. When I walk a lot of times, I listen to great podcasts like this to feed my mind. I'm doing that so you can, like Tony Robbins says, net time, no extra time. You feed your mind while you're doing something incredible for your body
Yeah,
and for your mental well-being.
that's right. Yeah, and we can be so distracted. I know we've got to wrap up here. Distractions being the clock on the wall, as Wayne
Yeah.
and Schuster used to say.
Oh yeah.
You get that reference,
I
of
do.
course, of just knowing that when we can schedule our days and our times and have our goals, we know that we can have a lot more peace. And growing up, my dad would tell me when I was trying to, how do I make a decision? What am I making have to make this decision, Dad? He would say, well, does it give you peace or does it steal your peace? And so, yeah, thank you so much, Brett, for joining us today. This conversation has been a delight to me, and I'm sure to our listeners as well.
It was a great pleasure to be here.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's such a delight to find like-minded people. And Brett, like you were saying, the podcast, the books, the resources, and even taking time to just disconnect and reflect is so valuable. So I know I already said thanks, but a sincere thanks for you.
No, and that's what, just one quick tidbit before, that's the whole idea behind why I started the weekly reset. I took a 4 hour reset this weekend to go canoeing. I gave myself permission to do that. So give yourself permission this week, everyone, to reset and put yourself first.
That's great. Thanks, Brett. And thank you to our viewers. We appreciate you joining in on this conversation. And if you haven't already, please help us grow this channel with a like and a subscribe, and share this with 3 of your friends. I'm sure there's at least one name rolling around in your head, maybe other than your own, who needs to hear this message. And that's what we're here for, is to help you and to have these great conversations to inspire all of us to have those goals and to take those steps, and sometimes to disconnect and take a break and reevaluate and audit what we're doing. And so I just want to thank you for being here today. It's been great, Brett. Great conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. Until next time, make sure to seize your day. Enjoy those sunrises and sunsets. Thanks for being here. I'm Michael Klassen.